tragedy. And at the same time, it reminds us that there is a lot of work for us to do as a collective, as a network, to enhance the relationships among many members of the families of our communities. It's just really, really sad. Uh, Matt, were you able to put up the secretary's note by any chance? I don't know if he hears me.
On that and getting it pulled up for you.
Secretary, over the weekend, Secretary Rodriguez over the weekend sent this to everyone at DOS, and I thought since the community action agencies are also part of the DOS family, that I would read his statement. Uh, to say what happened in Buffalo yesterday was horrific and tragic is an understatement. I am so deeply saddened by the events that have unfolded. But in this time of great pain, I want to send my condolences and support to the families who lost loved ones, the Buffalo community, and to our DOS families in Western New York. It is incomprehensible that what should have been a routine day of shopping and running errands, something we all do every day, turned into such a tragic and senseless end for so many people. Our hearts are with you, Robert Rodriguez. Thank you, Matt. And so, for all of us who are working on this on a daily basis, for all of us who continue to strive for a more equitable society, I thank you for your work you're doing and ask again that we keep in mind this tragedy not as a reminder of what we're lacking, but in reality, what we need to strive for as a community. And I thank you for your indulgence in allowing us to share a moment to raise this as to raise our collective consciousness for the work that we have to do moving forward. So to this guy, thank you, and to all the members of the network, I thank you, and for the leadership of the past, the Andreas and uh, the Jeromes and Adrians of the world. Thank you again for your leadership as well, Mike Bobbitt and Jackie. So thank you, and let's hope for better days ahead. Continuing my report, I want to acknowledge that DOS did receive its Northwood Grant Award for the rest of fiscal year 2022. We have money now for the third and fourth quarters of the year. As such, there was a slight increase in terms of the amount of money that we did receive, almost $200,000 more from last year over last year's allocation, which means that triggers a set of amendments that are going to be needed in order to accomplish the 90% distribution of the dollars. Just to let you know, to forewarn you that those papers are going out. Those documents are going out next week from our ARU, and if you need any assistance to complete those, please let your analyst know or let our office know. Again, I apologize for having to do this. There's no way around it. I know it's a pain, especially when it's such a little bit amount of money, but again, we need to distribute the money in order to stay within the state plan of the 90% distribution. In addition to that, I also want to acknowledge that the passage of HR 5129, which is the reauthorization of the CSBG Act, took place last Friday at the House of Representatives. It's now been forwarded to the Senate. Again, thanks to many who have been pushing for this. I know Adrian Fassett has been working hard on lobbying for this on behalf of New York State and NCAP and David Bradley. It's still not law, but within the authorization was the increase to 200% of the FPL, which is a good thing. But we need to have the Senate act on it in order for it to move forward. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. With reference to the annual report, we have now submitted all the corrections for FFY 2020, and we're waiting to get feedback on that. And we have submitted the documents and the modules for FFY 2021, and that's under review as we speak. Um, the we've been informed by the Office of Community Services (HHS) that New York State will be evaluated the CSBG program on August 22nd. They will be here. We are awaiting the engagement letter to see exactly how that is going to roll out. Is going to be done remotely, not in person. So we do know that, thanks to NASCAS, that but the experience with other states was that they asked for specific documentations pertaining to the state plan, and also the work that we do on our monitoring and the fiscal work. We'll get more particulars, like probably sometime in June when we get the letter, which is anticipated about 2 months before the actual visit. So we'll keep the advisory council and the network abreast of any progress on information on that as well. We don't know if they're going to reach out to any of the agencies at this point. I want to remind everybody again today, the 19th of May. CARES expenditures need to be completed by the 30th of September. This time around, I'm going to ask that if there are any agencies that have a sense that they will not, I repeat, will not spend their 100% allocation of the CARES dollars, so please let us know. We'll try to work with you, but if you're coming to the conclusion that it might be a very difficult challenge to spend 100%, then we would like to know. We had a meeting with OCS about 2 weeks ago. That was the first question out of out of the mouths of the people from OCS. What's happening with kids. Obviously, NISCA, NASCAS, and a lot of folks are putting together webinars on how to spend the money. There are videos how to do that. Those will continue, but again, if you need help, please let us know, and we will try to work with each agency. Letters are going out on a monthly basis, just to remind people that the deadline is fast approaching. And I'm going to ask Matt now to bring up the proclamations, if you don't mind. You have to make it bigger for me, Matt, please, because I can't read it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Obviously, May is Community Action Recognition Month. Secretary Rodriguez has been an enormous advocate for CSBG since his arrival at DOS. He has asked that I read 2 proclamations today, and also to make everyone aware, all the agencies, that individual proclamations and certificates of recognition will be going out to each agency over the next week. So for now, I'm going to read the first one. So Matt, just follow me if you can, and forgive I'm just going to read the first one in its entirety. Whereas 2022 marks the 58th anniversary of the passage of the Economic Opportunity Act, EOA, of 1964, the purpose of which was to enhance access to education, training, and employment opportunities to all individuals and families living in poverty. And whereas community action agencies were created under the EOA to enhance the capacity of communities to utilize innovative approaches in addressing the root causes of poverty, to develop and implement programs designed to serve poor and low-income communities through maximum feasible participation of individuals served, and to broaden resources dedicated to the elimination of poverty. And whereas the New York State Department of State serves as a partner in the community action movement through its designation as the State Economic Opportunity Office, and as the administrative agency for the Community Services Block Grant Program, New York State. And would you raise it up, Matt, please? Thank you. Whereas community action agencies provide vital services to low-income New Yorkers, including but not limited to housing, emergency assistance, child and adult care, food and nutrition programs, energy assistance programs, immigration and integration services, as well as education and employment training programs to assist families and communities across New York State to alleviate the causes and conditions of poverty by building financial independence and economic stability. And whereas New York State Department of State recognizes the New York State Community Action Network and the dedicated community action agencies and their committed employees whose work and services are the driving force behind building opportunities and increasing access to programs, services, and activities that will lead to self-sufficiency and economic stability for all New Yorkers. Matt? Go all the way up. Thank you. Now, therefore, today we recognize and express our gratitude to the community action agencies and Community Services Block Grant Advisory Council for their extraordinary efforts and service to the state of New York and their contributions to the ongoing efforts to strengthen and enhance the success of Community Action Network. It is my pleasure to present this certificate of recognition to the Community Services Block Grant Advisory Council in honor of Community Action Month with best wishes for continued success. Rodriguez, Secretary of State. Can you go to the next one? And go all the way up to the okay. I'm just going to read the last two. Whereas the New York State Community Action Association, Inc. delivers exemplary assistance and guidance to the Community Action Network by providing training and technical assistance through interactive learning courses and developing a resource library, supporting coordination of various work groups to address a variety of issues faced by Community Action Network, hosting the annual Professional Development Conference and regional convenings, and keeping the Community Action Network across New York State connected to national partners and informed on national trends while assisting to alleviate the causes and conditions of poverty by building financial independence and economic stability for families and communities. Now, therefore, today, we recognize and express our gratitude to the New York State Community Action Association under the leadership of Jackie Orr, Executive Director, for their extraordinary efforts and service to the state of New York and their contribution to the ongoing effort to strengthen and enhance the success of the Community Action Network. It is my pleasure to present the certificate of recognition to the New York State Community Action Network in honor of Association Inc. in honor of Community Action Month. Again, Robert Rodriguez, Secretary of State. So all the agencies should be receiving a certificate of recognition that is appropriate for each agency, recognizing each agency's efforts. And on behalf of Secretary Rodriguez, I want to thank the Advisory Council, its members, Dennis Wilson and his leadership, Tina and Dan Maskin, and Jackie Orr and colleagues over at NISCA for the extraordinary work. And with that, I thank you and I hand the meeting back to Dennis.
Okay. Manny, thank you very much. Next on the agenda, we're going to hear about some changes to the open meetings law from Rob. Rob, please.
Oh, thank you, Dennis. Hi, everyone. This is Rob Vanderbliss. Did we already do attendance and determine quorum? Did I miss that when I was in the other meeting?
At this point, we don't have a quorum unless it's changed. Does anybody know if we've achieved a quorum yet?
We've had a few more people join from the advisory council, Dennis, but we haven't been quorum.
Okay. We don't have a quorum, or we do?
We don't.
Okay, thank you. Rob, that's the answer. We don't have a quorum yet.
Okay. All right. So today, as of right now, the advisory council cannot take any formal action, but you can all listen to me talk. So in case you're unaware, I'm Rob Vanderbliss. I'm from the Office of General Counsel. One of my divisions is the Division of Community Services, and I want to bring the council's attention to some changes to the open meetings law applicable to public bodies. So beginning next month, some rules are going to change, the rules that we've gotten used to during the pandemic. And so what is going to change is that a member of a public body attending by video conference from a location not available to the public will only be permissible in extraordinary circumstances. And that procedure is only going to be available if that public body holds a hearing, deliberates on public comments, and passes a resolution and procedures implementing that flexibility. So that's why I'm here to talk to the advisory council to go over these potential changes and give a heads up to the advisory council that, working with DCS, I and DCS will be presenting a proposed resolution and procedures and noticing the next meeting to also include that hearing so that the advisory council can decide whether or not it would want to adopt those procedures. And so just let me back up a little bit and just remind everyone what's been allowed before and what is still allowed. So a public body can meet in person, all in one room, where that meeting is open to the public. That is still something that is okay. A public body can meet by video conferencing. Has to be video conferencing, can't just be by phone. We're still operating under the flexibilities, phone calls allowed. Past June, phone call only is not going to be allowed under any circumstance. So a public body can, past June, meet by video conferencing so long as each location where that public body is meeting through video conferencing is available and open to the public. In extraordinary I'm sorry, was there a question? Let me keep going. So in the event that there are extraordinary circumstances, a member of a public body, assuming that this resolution and procedures are adopted, could appear by video conferencing in a location not available to the public. The public body still has to have a quorum of individuals in locations open and available to the public. The kinds of extraordinary circumstances, consider the examples are illness, disability, child rearing responsibilities. Those are the kinds of extraordinary circumstances that are contemplated by the new statute. And then finally, if there is a disaster emergency in place and a public body determines that the circumstances necessitating the emergency declaration impair the ability to hold an in-person meeting, then the in-person meeting requirements can be suspended. And then finally, if video conferencing is used by a public body, that video conferencing has to be noticed in the meeting. It must be recorded. The link posted on DOS's website within 5 days, be available for 5 years after. And, it has to be transcribed upon request. Then finally, any member of the public body that is meeting, remotely in an area not open to the public, that has to be noted in the meeting minutes. So as I mentioned, for the next meeting of the advisory council, I can work with DCS to notice that meeting as a hearing so that the advisory council can hear any public comments on a proposed resolution and proposed procedures to implement these flexibilities. Does anyone have any questions? Great, thank you so very much. All right, Dennis, back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Rob.
I'm sorry, this is Jackie. Rob, there was a question in the chat that said, do these rules pertain to community action agency board meetings? So I think it would be helpful if you talk about what meetings these relate to.
So Jackie, this is related to public bodies. That's a defined term in the open meetings law. And so because we are so fortunate to have a wide variety of eligible entities, formal term for community action agencies, including some public entities, the answer does depend on the community action agency at issue. And so the best thing to do is for those community action agencies that have questions about the applicability of the open meetings law is to consult their own counsel. Because while CSBG funding is first and foremost always in our mind, the variety and flexibility of funding within our network and the different kinds of organizations that we have necessitate an organization reaching out to their own counsel who's fully familiar with everything going on in that organization to get the proper advice.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Okay. Next, Jackie, going to give us updates on NISCA. Okay, Jackie's going to give us updates on NISCA. Jackie?
All right, great. Thank you, Dennis. And thank you, Manny, and thank the secretary for that proclamation. I think this may be one of the first times NISCA itself has received a proclamation. So I will share that with the staff, and we definitely appreciate that. So I will be brief this morning. I know the advisory board members, or advisory council board members have received the report. And a lot of the rest of you know what we do at NISCA. So I'll just give some highlights. We are still doing a lot of our e-learning. We have NISCA Learn, which is our e-learning platform. We now have a total of 10 courses on that platform open to community action agency staff and board members. And right now we have over 2,100 what we call users, which is great. That has grown. That continues to grow, but it really grew a lot in 20 and 21, and it does grow now, but just a little more slowly over the last several months. We still hold introduction to Roma trainings. That has always been very popular within the network. We now do them virtually, which has made it even easier for community action agency staff to attend them. They are offered over 3 days, 3 hours per day. And with new staff coming in and out of community action agencies, and for staff, existing staff who want a refresher, they, as we say, they sell out within a very short period of time. So we typically have been offering them every other month. And not only does it give new agency staff the opportunity to learn about Roma, but it also gives our Roma certified trainers the opportunity to train. Every certified Roma trainer has to do a Roma training once in the course of a year in order to maintain their certification. So these trainings really help our certified trainers maintain their certification. We also are continuing to do ACEs trainings. You may remember the Adverse Childhood Experience trainings. We were trained, there was 25 community action agency staff that were trained in 2020, almost 2 years ago. It would have been the fall of 2020, and 19 have become certified. And we are doing trainings. Not only are the staff doing trainings in their own communities and for their own agencies, but we've also been doing the trainings to the Community Action Network, again, virtually, and we have been holding them every other month as well. Good opportunity for community action agencies to learn about adverse childhood experiences and trauma and resilience. We're also available to go individually to a community action agency to provide specific training for their staff. We also continue to hold webinars, and we really hold network-wide webinars based on the needs of the network. And we always do a training and technical assistance survey, so we have a sense of, we know what the needs are, training needs are for the network. So we are continuing to do those. We also have a Roma Alliance that's made up of community action agency certified Roma trainers, as well as certified Roma implementers. And the group meets quarterly. And out of this group came the smaller work group that was formed to develop community action plan templates for the network. So far, we've developed and disseminated 8 community action plan templates. And they're really used as a way for community action agencies as they submit their community action plan to the Department of State. They can use those templates as guidance as they develop their plans. One of the things that was really grown in NISCA is our peer group and what we call affinity groups. So for many, many years, we've had a finance and HR and an IT Captain, which is one of our databases, and Cap 60, another database. We've always had those affinity groups meet and discuss, and we have a listserv where folks can email each other with questions. But there's been some desire and some requests from the network. So we've formed other affinity groups. We now have one for frontline direct service staff. We have another that we just recently started that's met twice for community action agency staff who work in senior related programs. And then most recently we have, there was a request to have a affinity group for executive assistants. So that group has met once. And we actually now also have what we call our child care think tank. We have a group of folks who are meeting to discuss child care within each of our communities. We continue also to do emerging leaders. We have an emerging leader institute. This is a huge year. We have, I think, a total over 50 individuals. We have 35, I believe, in our ELI 1.0, which means it's their first year. And then 19 folks from last year continued into our second year. We met for the first time in April in person, and that was our first seminar. We have another seminar scheduled in July, which is going to be virtual. And then our last one is going to be in October, which we hope is going to be able to be in person. NISCA is still working closely with DOS around monitoring. So we have a monitoring work group comprised of DOS staff as well as Community Action Agency representatives, and we're looking at DOS monitoring processes and current tools and really creating a framework, a foundational framework around DCS monitoring. NISCA also, we continue to produce our monthly newsletters, and we're now going to be finalizing our poverty report, which typically comes out, it's May, that typically comes out earlier in the year, usually about March, but you may remember that the 2020 census data was delayed until they got to, the Census Bureau got a chance to sort of review the data. So that is going to be out in June. So we'll be, all the agencies will be getting that, and it'll be posted on our website. We've been doing some work under CARES funding as well. We've been having this motivational interviewing course with two professors at the University of Buffalo who run this course for us. As a 10-week motivational interviewing course. We've had 20 staff at a time attend that. So we're starting our fourth one in next month. So we'll have, by the time we're done, we'll have had 80 staff who have been certified and gone through that course. We are in the process of doing, we've had 2 reports. One is done, but we're combining them together. So we're going to be releasing them as one report. So we're now, one of our staff people at NISCA has been having conversations with the network of our impact, you know, what we did and how we responded to COVID and what changes in service delivery was made and what of those have continued. We're really excited about that. We're getting tons of information from all of you at community action agencies. It's going to be a fabulous report. We're really looking forward to that release, and that will probably be in August. We also, under our CARES grant, are doing a series of webinars. So we recently did one called Digital Wellness, which was very well attended. It was talked about achieving presence, purpose, and productivity in an era of constant connection. And I know we all feel that that burden, so to speak. And now we are going to be doing 2 webinars coming up in June, so next month, on compassion fatigue. So we've heard a lot about that. We, our partners in New Jersey have spoken about that as well. And then we are continuing our social justice committee. We're working with a DEI consultant with that group of folks, and we're in that process now of looking at DEI and making changes in practice and policies within our agencies. NISCA still continues to be the lead for Region 2, which is New York, New Jersey, and Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. We held a regional convening in February, and with the support of OCS and the Department of State and the Department of Community Services in New Jersey, and we highlighted some of the great work of community action agencies, and that was got a lot of good feedback about that. In fact, it was so positive that next year we're going to do it again, even though it's sort of, the regional convening this year was required as a part of our federal grant. Next year is not required, but because we got such positive feedback, we're going to do another one this winter, also being held virtual. NISCA also has a number of communities of practices where folks get together and focus on a certain issue and share resources with each other and best practices. So we have 4 of them, one focused around trauma-informed agencies, one around leadership, one focused on data and another one with a focus on best practices and evidence-based practices. A couple of those groups are going to be presenting at our conference in September that we hope is going to be in person. And so that's the last thing I want to say. We are planning for our annual professional development conference. And right now we have a schedule for the end of September, and we're looking to do it at the Hyatt Regency in Rochester. So we had a request for proposals out to the network and beyond. And where we do this with our sister association, the New York State Weatherization Directors Association. So we're looking forward to that conference. And Dennis, I turn it back to you. That's all I have.
Okay. Anybody got any questions for Jackie? Wonderful presentation, Jackie. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is some old business. Compensation for community action employees. Dan Maskin's going to lead that. Dan, good morning.
Thank you, Dennis. I think this is going to be more of a collective approach, but we've been having some pretty spirited discussions in our weekly list, NISCA directors listserv, really about the issue of wages and the irony that we are poverty fighting organizations, yet the wages that we pay people might do more to keep our employees in poverty or be eligible for poverty programs, and what strategies we can deploy. To see if we can start turning that around. Charlie, you and I had talked about you providing some information during this section of the agenda, so I'll turn it over to you.
Sure, I have more loudness than I have actual information. I would like to urge the Advisory Council and the Department of State to move toward putting into the state plan and to work with the New York State Legislature to set a floor for wages and salaries that CSBG funds are used to pay staff. Make a floor for salaries, make a floor for medical benefits, a floor for retirement benefits. As Dan pointed out, many of our staff throughout the state are eligible for the services that our agencies provide. Manny, when you read off the proclamations from the Secretary of State, the mission of CSBG in New York was part of it, and it's about moving people out of poverty. But really what we've done over the years, through our contracts, through our state plan, we've allowed poverty salaries that are sanctioned by New York State and the Department of State to say that it's okay to keep people living in poverty. And it's really a matter of justice, racial equity, gender equity. Most of the people that work at our agencies, we hire from the communities that we serve. And quite frankly, they don't look like me. Their skin is darker. A lot of people are foreign born, and a lot of them are women. And we are preventing them from rising up out of poverty by continuing to pay wages that really are not conducive to self-sufficiency. New York State, when it has contracts in other areas, if we were building bridges and courthouses with state funds, we would be requiring prevailing wages be paid to the workers. And a lot of those workers would be men. And it's right and it's just that they get paid the prevailing wages so they can support themselves, support their families. The people who work with CSBG funds deserve nothing less. We, in the weatherization department, we have groaned in the past when we've been required to pay Davis-Bacon wages to weatherization workers. And really, we should have been glad about it. The administrative hurdle, okay, it's administrative hurdle, but we're paying people wages that help them get to a better place in life. I think we should look at our network, figure out how many people are getting paid wages that put them at a threshold that keeps them, not federal poverty wages, but keeps them from a living wage in New York State and the counties that we live. And it's not going to be an overnight fix, but I think we should be quickly moving down the path where we say anybody who works for community action is going to be making a decent wage. If we're hiring people out of our community, we need to be getting them to a better place. And not more than, but in addition to helping out the people that we serve, it's going to help out the network in our agencies. The wages that we pay are too low. They contribute to the staff turnover that we have at our agencies. It makes it much more difficult to provide the services to our communities when things keep spinning around. It makes our individuals, agencies weaker. It makes our network as a whole weaker. We need to create longevity in the network. And over the past couple of weeks, Governor Hochul's been rolling out her proposed budget, or not a proposed budget, her budget for the state. And the priorities that she's set in there: childcare, housing, substance use disorder treatment, green jobs, gun violence. These are all things that the CSBG network addresses, and it should be funded that way. And the people that are doing the work should be paid as though these are priorities of New York State government. I think I'll end it there.
Yeah, bringing it down per the minute.
Thank you, Charlie. Dan, is there more from you, or?
No, that's I think Charlie said it very well.
Okay.
We really need to start focusing our attention beyond recruitment. It's the right thing to do.
Is there anybody else who would like to render an opinion or has any questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Charlie and Dan. We'll move on to new business, discretionary funds to address the rural agencies.
Dennis, excuse me, I just wanted to go back to one thing, a clarification. Charlie, maybe you could help out, but at one point we were talking about this issue as a regular agenda item for the advisory council.
Yes.
And I'm not sure we wanted to take that any further today, but I think it's worth mentioning that that's something that we've talked about.
Yeah, I certainly thank you for that. I was on mute, unfortunately. I certainly believe that there should be a regular reporting on this process, because it's really unfair for us to pay those wages and ask people to do the kind of job that they're expected to do.
So is it agreed by everybody? We want to keep it on the agenda for each meeting?
I would support that. Yeah. Are you calling a question, a vote, or just get a pulse?
We don't really have a
Yeah.
quorum, so we can just get a consensus. I mean, is anybody opposed to it? I don't see anything wrong with keeping it on the agenda myself. I don't want to make the determination alone.
Again, I think it's a good idea to continue to discuss it.
Right, so why don't we keep it on the agenda, and there's no harm for doing that, and look for updates at each meeting. Thanks, Dan, for bringing it back to that. We will then turn it over to Dan again to talk about discretionary funds to address the needs of rural agencies. Dan.
I don't know how I got so popular on the agenda. There were many people that were involved in that conversation, and I think we had some, very good discussion. think probably the real problems that that agencies in rural communities are facing, and communities in upstate New York or rural New York are facing, require massive amounts of resources. And I think it goes beyond the scope of what the discretionary portion of CSBG could provide. But nonetheless, we talked about maybe smaller or more localized initiatives and impacts that may be possible. And please, anybody else that was on the call, feel free to jump in or not.
No further
This
discussion.
is Manny. I just want to build off of what Dan was talking about. He asked for the CAs that are serving predominantly rural counties. Just what unique and just with those issues. It was service deserts, transportation, and access to healthcare, things like that. The idea to continue the action, if you will, so that we can explore what it is that we can do with CSBG, whether it's discretionary or innovative program that are addressing some of these matters, I guess, with the help of obviously the network, but through the leadership of the network as well. So it was the first attempt really to get a handle on those challenges, and we hope to continue that discussion, knowing, and Dan is right, knowing that sometimes it will take more than just CSBG dollars, but at least starting to raise the attention of stakeholders about the issues that are being faced in rural counties, across the board. So we hope to continue that discussion moving forward.
Okay, thank you, Manny. Any further discussion on the topic from anybody? Okay, is there any other old or new business that's not on the agenda that anybody wants to bring up?
I'd like to bring up, I think, new business.
Go ahead, Charlie.
I want to bring up what happened in Buffalo past weekend. And we did just have a discussion earlier this morning with some of the executive directors. It highlights the problem of racism in our state. Jerome Underwood has done incredible work up in Rochester, getting his governments to recognize racism as a public health crisis. And what happened in Buffalo clearly demonstrates how big a problem it is. But aside from that horrible tragedy, day to day, it is a problem for the people that we serve. Racism in our country, in our state, has a history of lynchings, just like what happened last week, and more sinister, ubiquitous things like redlining, where the communities that we serve are outlined by those red lines, and the effects are still felt today. The word racism does not appear anywhere in our state plan. And I think the advisory council and the Department of State should figure out a plan how we're going to work it into community action collectively to make sure that we are addressing it as a root cause of poverty and taking it head on.
Okay, Charlie, thank you very much. Anybody else have any comments? Okay. We still don't have a quorum, so we can't adopt the minutes from the previous meeting.
Actually, Dennis, I have another item,
oh.
new business.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll keep it quick. I have alerted the network. This is just a friendly reminder. DYC is going to host our second CBO/MWBE exchange. It'll be a virtual meeting held on May 24th. So this is an opportunity to meet and greet with state certified MWBE vendors. So I just wanted to remind the network, if you need any more information about registration, you can just shoot me an email, and it's free and made available to the network. And thanks to DOS, Catherine Trainer will do a presentation as part of the event.
Oh, great. Well, thank you, Mike, for that announcement, and appreciate it very much. Anybody else?
Yeah, Dennis, just before we close, I just wanted to go back to what Charlie was saying about acknowledging racism in the state plan. And I think probably DOS is going to want to have a group review the state plan as we've done in the past. So I'm thinking, Manny, it might be good for us to keep this in the forefront of our minds so that when we review the state plan and make changes in it, before we get to the public hearing part, that we think about how this can be integrated into the state plan.
That's a good suggestion.
Good idea.
We'll do that. And Charlie, thank you again, for the follow-up. I think everybody feels the same in sentiment, whether we express it outwardly or not. Maurice has been a teacher to me over the years and talks about racism as a public health issue. So there are many ways for us to keep this at the forefront of our discussions, very frankly, not be afraid to raise it, which is also very important, because obviously for many of us, this has been a lifelong struggle, whether we've been victims or we've seen victims. So there's a lot of work to do, and we will try to incorporate that, even under the current plan, to see what we can do to move this forward. So thanks again for that.
Thanks again to you, Manny.
Dennis,
Yes.
this is Michael Martin with Native American Community Services in Buffalo.
Yes, Michael.
Thanks, Charlie, for putting it on the floor. I was trying to figure out how to address it. It's still a little raw. Unfortunately, our staff's been directly impacted. I had one staff member just alone lose an uncle, a cousin, and her kid's aunt. And, it's a societal issue. Racism itself, but the idea of supremacy, that one is greater than the other. And we have to focus on our common humanity. As human beings, no matter where we live on this planet, we all have the same basic needs, right? We all need clean air to breathe, we need clean water to drink, we need food to eat to sustain us. We want shelter and warmth when we're cold. We all want a sense of belonging and to be valued. And we all smile in the same language. Mm-hmm. And, I want to also raise up the point about the compensation for, the frontline people that are working in this field as well. Trying to address the underlying issues that create separation and division, and the idea of haves and have-nots, and I'm better than you, or the separation, the segregation, all of those factors that create the divide, that people can't see the commonality, and they focus on the differences, fortunately, that they can see, which usually is often skin color alone. We need to see each other as human beings, striving for the same thing. We need to lift each other up and support each other. So I encourage the work of the network of the community action organizations and everyone involved to look for how we can continue to do that, to help people find that commonality. Because if we can see how much more we have in common than we are apart, maybe that will make a difference as we go down this path of trying to find solutions. I went to the vigil on Tuesday, and one of the best things I heard out of that was You know, when people talk about when these tragedies happen in different parts of the country, you know, this community strong, that community strong. And the speaker said, we can't be Buffalo strong. To be strong, we have to be united. And segregation is a real issue in our Buffalo and Western New York community, as it is in many other parts of the state, you know, and those simple dividing lines create these, you know, different views of people that are just fallacies in nature that don't really exist, but in perception of mind allow these things to fester. The underlying conditions that led to this is obviously in other parts of the state. The kid came from Congress, and you know, what she said was, we need to be Buffalo honest. We need to have those real conversations and find solutions. And I think we're still struggling to figure out, you know, that we're just another list on the nationwide pandemic that's become, you know, these mass shootings, race and hate violence. And, you know, we're all looking for solutions going forward. But I wanted to thank you for acknowledging that. And I want to encourage everybody to be part of the solution and don't let those 10 people's lives go in vain. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Anybody else?
Yeah, can I just say one thing? Hi, I'm Brandy Haynes from the CAO here in Buffalo. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for your kind words and your thoughts and prayers. I actually grew up in Cold Spring. That's the neighborhood where Tops is from. I'm sorry, where Tops is located. My entire family lives in that neighborhood, and my parents were at that Tops 2 hours before the shooting. We are heavily affected here. But we are standing Buffalo strong. I want to say thank you, Michael and Manny and everyone for your kind words, and all of the other CAP agencies that have reached out to us and offered support. Thank you to Nancy and DLS staff. And right now we're just working to support that community. That grocery store is, for right now, closed indefinitely. So that community does not have another grocery store for miles. And that community is in the middle of a food desert, which is one of the things that we fight for every day is food justice for low-income communities. So we are working together with a number of other organizations. What I will say is this has brought a number of nonprofits and community-based orgs together through this tragedy to work together, to work to break down silos, and just support each other in this cause. So after I hop off this call, I actually had a private meeting with a very large foundation here to kind of work together and put resources together for those folks. So I would just ask that you just keep us in your prayers and your thoughts, and just keep doing the awesome work that everyone does every day.
Everybody will do that, I'm sure. And thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so let's reconfirm. We do have a quorum at this point in time.
We don't have a quorum.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said one more person joined and we had a quorum. Okay. So we can't adopt the minutes, and we don't even need to adjourn the meeting because we can't vote to adjourn it. So meeting was called to order by, I guess, or welcomed by me, and I will thank everybody for attending. And I guess at this point, close the meeting. Look forward to seeing everybody in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank
Take
you.
care, everyone.
Thank you.